Thank you, Film Bazaar, for organizing this very important conversation. And welcome to the audience. I'm sure the audience is peppered with a whole lot of young filmmakers who also want to explore this genre. Now, children's film in India is a very peculiar thing. We produce the most amount of films in the world. We produce the most amount of children in the world. But somehow, that doesn't proportionally match to the amount of children's films we produce. Children's films, I think, are less than 2% of what is produced in the country. And if you look at bulk of these films, these are all independent films by very sort of insane directors and very brave producers who put in all their grit and all their conviction in making these films. And most of the films, as I was discussing with Zafrin also yesterday, are around the realities and aspirations of children from marginalized backgrounds. They're, of course, joyous and effective and very compelling content, which usually, ends up, some of them end up traveling the world over and win acclaim in very many festivals, particularly since the last 10 years. And slightly more, I think the first film that really made international waves was Udan for young adults. After that, of course, Kila's gone, and Dhanak's, of course, gone, and I Am Kalam, and Gattu, and so many others, which have won, whether it's national awards or they've won international awards. They've also, some of them, were able to find some sort of distribution in educational networks outside of India. I think Dhanak was also one of them, right, in Belgium or other places. But when it comes to India, they find it very difficult to find screens. It's very difficult to release the film. So this is really what we want to explore. Now, in total contrast to this, contrast to children's cinema is what is called children's content. Huge growth in children's content. You sort of, whether it's television networks, whether it's animation work in local languages that is being produced right now, or on the digital space, that content is ubiquitous, which treats a child as a consumer, and of course at the end also tries to make the tastes and desires more uniform. But this discrepancy between children's cinema, which doesn't seem to, even after 100 years of our film industry, hasn't made a space for itself, and the absolute phenomenal growth in children's content. This is something that we would want to explore. But before we delve into that, I just want a quick round as to what each of us sort of, how we view children's films. What are children's films for us? And I'd request all the panelists to be very brief in this first round, and then we'll set the tone. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, all the panelists. Thank you, Monica. Quickly, I would like to thank NFDC and Film Bazaar to initiate this discussion about children's cinema. This is the most needed topic at this hour. For me, children's cinema should be entertaining, but at the same time, it should be educating, engaging, and empowering for the young people. And we should talk about their issues also. So children's cinema, for them who are actually, they can connect with the characters, they can connect with the topics or message mentioned in the film. So I think that's in a nutshell.
Hi, first of all, thank you for having me here and on this interesting subject. And especially when we read the subject, children's films into mainstream cinema. And I always feel that children's, if we consider less than 14 years, in 10 to 15 years, they become the audience for the mainstream. So I always feel that if you have to catch them young, if you have to keep the mainstream flowing, it's very important to feed them young, to create content related to the kids, related to the children, grow them, and then move them onto, and get this transition done into the mainstream, what we call it. So it's very important to flourish not only the kids cinema, the children's section, but that's also important to maintain the mainstream. And that's how I look at it, that in a country, if we have a flourishing kids section of children's cinema, definitely the mainstream cinema is also going to flourish. We see it, what is happening in Hollywood, and we see it, what's not happening in India. So that's something which I feel is interesting, and we need to talk about it.
Sure. We'll take this up once we come to you after that. Would you like to?
Thank you, Monica. First of all, glad to be here in this part of the eminent panel, experts and filmmakers. I'm not a film expert, but I am a child rights advocacy expert and communication. So that is what we do as humanitarian workers. So to me, Monica, is the film for children is the film that authentically, truly, brings out the voice of the child or of the children, their issues, their crises, their existence, their situation, in a true manner. Not like in most cases we would see that children are creating just there, creating a buzz under our radar. Not that, where children are the protagonists, they come as humans. They're mini humans, but they're still humans, and their rights are human rights. And where children feel truly included, not as a tokenistic inclusion, where they find their voice, their expression. Children have many, many things to offer. They are not, not only about problems, they have solutions, they are innovation. We have come across so many children, in science and technology, in creative arts, they're making waves, and how children are breaking barriers, gender barriers, negative social norm barriers. There are a lot of stories that can be told about children, and that is, to me, what I understand by children's films. And there are exceptions, good exceptions, the films that are included in this festival. As you said, large proportion of children's films are disproportionately small in numbers, but there are. So that is the hope and the optimism that I have.
Thank you. First of all, Ifi and everybody, UNICEF, for having discussion about something which is really very, very important for us, I think. See, today we often talk about market, and you talked about grooming children and grooming them young. I have a little contrarian point of view to that. I feel, I think childhood is the only time, अगर आप किसी को देखें तो बच्चा ही है जहाँ पे selflessly कोई कुछ करता है. There is, I'm not saying all of us should immediately turn into altruistic and start, ignoring the real world out there. But I think we owe something to our children. Forget the marketing part. I'll come to that later. I'm from that world. And eventually, you land there, and everything ends up becoming economics. But जो बच्चे हैं, वो हमारी बुनियाद हैं, हमारे कल की बुनियाद है. They are the foundation of our society and the future we talk about. उसकी बुनियाद में जो ईंटें आप लगा रहे हैं, वो बच्चे हैं, और बच्चों को जो दिखा रहे हैं वो है. तो मैंने एक जगह लिखा था कि धूप के सिक्के उठाकर गुनगुनाने दो उसे, धूप के सिक्के उठाकर गुनगुनाने दो उसे, बैंगनी कंचे हथेली पर सजाने दो उसे, भोली भाली रहने दो, जिंदगी को बहने दो. बहुत जल्दी दुपट्टे ओढ़ना सिखला रहे हैं हम, क्यों जिंदगी को रात से मिलवा रहे हैं हम. वो पल्लू से चिपक के मां के चलती थी तो अच्छी थी, अकेला छोड़कर उसको क्या कहना चाह रहे हैं. तो एक बचपन की जो उंगली थामनी होती है, बचपन को जो दिशा दिखानी होती है, बचपन को कहीं जो एक त्वरा देनी होती है, उसमें एक पर्पस ऐड करना होता है, वो हमारा काम है. That is the duty of parenthood. That is part of our societies. We must do that. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our children. Forget the marketing part of it, and I'll later on, when Monica ji takes us into the further journey, I'll talk about how it's viable. It's absolutely viable. When we did Tare Zameen Par, I offered my services for that film, imagining that the film, I was mistaken. I said that I probably would not charge for this film. This is an important film, we must do it. And the agreement was, if it does well, then probably you will. I said, okay, but in my head I thought, it's a must-do subject, और इसके लिए तो करना ही चाहिए. But it ended up actually becoming a commercial hit. So, ऐसा नहीं है कि वो commercial नहीं होता है. But right now, the first point I wanted to make is that we owe it to our children that we make films for them.
Thank you. Shri, so I'll just take it on from here itself, because you mentioned Tare Zameen Par. Tare Zameen Par was of course a beautiful film about a dyslexic child. It resonated with kids, but it was primarily targeted at parents. And of course, it also had, the presence and investment of a star. So can you just sort of tell us more? Do you think there is a possibility of having a commercial success for a children's film without a star involved? Do you think that that's possible, and what would need to be done?
ऐसा नहीं है. देखिए, stars are, I see stars as if they must come, then they should play a role. There has to be a role for them. There is a reason you have a star. If you remember Tare Zameen Par, half the film has no star. Actually, only after interval that you have a film star introduced, which you call superstars otherwise. But I think the subject is the hero. And subject talks to, देखिए, बच्चों की फिल्में सिर्फ बच्चों को नहीं देखनी चाहिए, हमें भी देखनी चाहिए. क्योंकि, and everybody keeps saying, every motivational speaker you hear today, they will say, keep the child in you alive. Boss, what are you doing with your child? Forget that. अपने अंदर का बच्चा तो बचाने की बात कर रहे हैं, अपना बच्चा तो बचा लो पहले यार. So I think you need to understand that somewhere we need to appeal to that side, and I think the fact that I'm rather little disappointed the gathering here should have been more for the children film, but it's okay. At least we are having a discussion. The discussion you are having, and UNICEF is taking initiative to have, that we are concerned. It means there are takers out there. It means, so don't worry about the audience. With right intent, you make something, people fall in line, they'll come. And also create a moral pressure in people that you must watch this film. It's important for you. देखिए, बार-बार वो चाट के ठेले पर रुकता है, कभी तो उसको घर में जाके अच्छा खाना खिलाइए.
नहीं, बिल्कुल ठीक है. I think we're also in India, I think as parents, everybody is really concerned कि बच्चे को खाना क्या खा रहे हैं, कौन से स्कूल में जा रहे हैं, क्या करेगा. But उसके माइंड में क्या हो रहा है, उसका सोल क्या फीड कर रहे हैं, उससे we are not concerned, So that's one major issue. So I'll come to you, Manish, now, because you released Dhanak. That was your third production. And beautiful film, again, with two lovely child protagonists, which, again, won awards across the world. But it's been a while since, and you haven't produced any other children's film. So if you can sort of elucidate with your experience of releasing Dhanak without a star investment and presence, can you just tell us about that? Yeah.
Sure. I'll pick up from where Mr. Prasoon Joshi left. In Tare Zameen Par, if you pull out Amir Khan and put someone who doesn't have a star value, it wouldn't have got a release. That's the truth. And that's the case with Dhanak. We all over the world celebrated. We won, I think, national award. It was directed by Nagesh Kuknur. Beautiful story, well shot. And we didn't have a total box office collection of even 50 lakhs. So the point is, when you make such cinema, and when you have this, take this courage to make such film without stars, because of course stars are unreachable for producers like us. But if you still take that courage to make the film, invest, you don't find audience. And you don't find audience because you don't find space. And when you don't find space, is because, again, you don't have a star value to attract. And then, making things worse, we had faith that with the advent of OTT, probably we'll have a level playing field. And surprisingly, the OTT channels also went to that same route where they want stars to bring in. So the point is, when we invest on these actors, they make them stars and take it to the upper level. Again, we are left with new people whom we have to work with and make them stars. And once they are stars, they leave that space and we have to find another one. And we have been doing that for years. But having said that, why I'm still optimistic about it is, if you see globally, if you take top 5 or 10 children's film, including The Lion King, the recent one, or The Frozen, or The Despicables, and many more, the top 8 kid films in last 8 years have done box office collection of more than $1.2 billion, each one. Now, Lion King has done $1.6 billion. And India, with a population almost 33 to 34 crores of kids, like below the age of 14, that's equivalent to the population of US and almost half of Europe. We have a huge scope of doing that, but we don't do it. Why? Because, of course, the front runners of the film industry in India, whichever language we are talking of, Hindi, Marathi, Telugu, Tamil, the front runners, they don't want to invest in this cinema. They have to come upfront, like what Mr. Amir Khan did with Tare Zameen Par, or even for the sake, you say, Dangal. We need more such influencers to come in, make quality cinema, so that more and more kids and more and more families come onto the theater. And we have a huge market out there. And as I said earlier in the introductory sentence, that if you don't take care of this section, when these kids become young, adult, your mainstream would be dried up. They won't even come to cinema hall to watch it. And it's happening. And it's happening with my kids. When I interact with them, they know exactly the release date of those tentpole films 2 years down the line, what's going to come. But they don't want to see any Hindi film in the theater. And that's happening with most of the kids. So it's a very alarming situation we are in. And if we don't take corrective measures, whether in terms of giving them space, in terms of helping them to create the content, in terms of promoting them, our mainstream is going to die. And in next 10 to 15 years, you won't see our young adult even going to cinema to watch Indian content, to tell you very frankly, because we've been challenged massively with international content, which is quality content, and they are big fans of these films, and we don't have anything from our side to present that, okay, guys, come watch these films, especially the children films. And just want to add one more line. World's best animation films or VFX films, if you see through the credit roll at the end, most of the names are Indian names who have been involved in the whole VFX section, in creating the animations. But we don't have any Indian film coming out with that level of animation, that level of quality. So it's a sad truth, and that's where government has to come in. They have to really, really focus to ensure proper rules are laid with OTTs to help showcase these kids' films, to help fund these kid films, to create special labs to develop the content and make these as some part of curriculum as the students, school and other things, this which government can do, to catch them young, to feed them, breed them. So government has to play an important role to create a space to showcase this film through OTT and cinema, of course. So it's something like each OTT firm has to do some 5 children films every year, or 10, 15, I don't know the number, but they have to, as a part of their rule. Each cinema hall has to have so many hours of kids section, whether they have to. Then we create labs across the country to breed young writers, new writers to develop kids content, and then funding those who are going to make these films which has kids as protagonists or kid films, and then making it part of the curriculum studies, both in terms of filmmaking, in terms of film viewing, and in terms of talking about film. I think that's very important and needs to be addressed ASAP. Thank you very much.
That's a very, yeah, that's a very well appreciated point. So across the world, wherever children's films prosper, and I'm not talking about America because America has an entire industry which is sort of targeted at family content, right? But if you look at Europe, for instance, they really do have kids-specific content, which is also, of course, watched by parents, but it's primarily targeted. And that's really helped a lot by a whole lot of supportive measures, whether it's in terms of production, distribution. And in terms of schools, you know, our own country, in 2006, the new curriculum framework has already integrated film as part of the curriculum. Of course, it's upon the states whether they want to take it up or not. So there's only one state in the country which has taken that up, and there are no prizes for guessing which state. It's Kerala. So, Kerala actually uses film. All their 9th standard, 10th standard kids and above, all the teachers are trained how to make films, and all the students do these exercises in school. And, you know, to your point about the sort of a quota or a reservation or some sort of a thing on OTTs. Now OTTs, because theaters are probably not, and this is exactly what happened with Marathi cinema, right? Marathi cinema really got that space because the government said that, no, you have to screen Marathi films. But coming to you, Zafrin, now, I mean, you look at a country like India, I mean, it's so challenging for most kids in the country to even access, you know, healthy nutrition, quality education, housing, health. So, but when we're talking about children's films, it almost seems like, why are we discussing films? You know, when basic rights are also quite challenging. So to you, in a sense, how do you really see the role of films? Because when we talk about Lion King, when we talk about, you know, these other films which are huge commercial successes, but perhaps the stories that you are looking at to be told are slightly different. So if you could talk about that, and I think you also wanted to share a short 1-minute film, right? Yeah.
Okay. So, Monica, when we talk about rights, you know, from really, you know, referring to the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, we say that rights are indivisible. Yes, there are, you know, of course we need to prioritize food, shelter, health, you know, education. But if you look at and I agree with you that a lot of the children are still, and people are still on the wrong side of the digital divide. And then how do we reach them? But then the proliferation, if you look at the content and the smartphones, then we also know that, you know, that is going forward and spreading in leaps and bounds. So, you know, we should not, therefore, not talk about, you know, popularizing and mainstreaming children's films. All should go together. So that would be my view. And I want to pick a couple of things from, you know, fellow panel speakers, respected panelists, is that really creating that moral pressure that, you know, and the government sponsorship plus quality. If it all comes together, you know, in this festival, for the first time, we are partnering with the film festival, with NFDC. And this is a, you know, modest initiative that we have started with. But this is also a very good step forward in mainstreaming the children's films. So you know, that is what we mean. That, and when the government comes forward in creating audiences, in really mentoring and sponsoring and supporting children's films to go far, then, you know, then it will happen. And when we are talking about the, you know, the journey to 2047, this is the largest cohort, as you said at the beginning, largest cohort of children, young people, close to 500 million. How can we not, you know, include them? How can we not mainstream them? You know, the child who's 1 year today will be 26 in 2047. So the 10-year-old will be 35. So we really need to include them and depict them. And there's a lot of possibilities. A well-told story will succeed. So talking about what I wanted to show, we mine these stories in UNICEF. They're the stories of strength, of courage, of resilience, beautiful stories. And I wish I could show you 10, but I can't. I had to pick one. Children are making changes, making waves across India. I just want to show one on Gaurangshi. I mean, she, stole my heart. Yes, please.
और गौरांशी की सबसे, मैं आपको बताऊं कि सबसे अच्छी बात थी कि डेडिकेशन तो था ही एक बहुत अच्छा, तो जो लर्निंग की एक जिज्ञासा है आप जिसे कहें, तो वो उसमें बहुत अच्छी है, बहुत लंबा जाना है उसे।
Thank you for sharing that film with us. What I get is essentially you're saying these real stories where kids have agency, young people have agency, and what would it take for the mainstream film industry to create films, which are empowering, which are inspiring. I, would now come to Jitendra, because Jitendra has been running this wonderful festival since the last few years. And really, when it comes to children's films, it is difficult for the reasons that Manish also told us, to grapple with the theaters, with OTTs. But how do you build audiences? And perhaps really it's through film festivals like his that you're able to create these audiences for children's cinema. So, Jitu, if you could sort of talk about, the role of festivals. Yeah.
Yeah, but before that, I agree with Prasoon ji that children film is not only for children, but it's for all. So, as a audience, we have to be more responsible. We should encourage our children to watch films made for them. At the same time, we should also watch with them. That's how we build an audience. So together, the children film is made for parents also. That is the key.
यहाँ मीडिया के लोग हैं, मैं कह रहा हूँ कि आज ही से क्यों नहीं शुरुआत करते आप? ये समाज में ये प्रेशर क्रिएट करना ये किसी और का काम नहीं है, हमारा काम है. We should write that our parents should start feeling कि बच्चों के लिए फिल्म बन क्यों नहीं रही है. भाई अगर आप बच्चों को वो तो नहीं खिलाते ना आप जो अडल्ट्स को खिलाते हैं. फूड में तो आप ध्यान रखते हैं ना. बच्चे को आप कब से एंटरटेनमेंट को हम ये क्यों नहीं समझते? इट्स और रॉ मटेरियल, इट्स फूड फॉर थॉट. ये फूड फॉर थॉट भी इतना ही ज़रूरी है जितना food for body है, the food for body, you take so much of care. There are so many companies who are launching products for children. You will not feed them what you will feed an adult. That why are you feeding them what, and you're leaving TV open, बिठा दिया बच्चे को सामने और कुछ भी लगा दिया. कितने माँ बाप ये करते हैं? क्या ये गैर जिम्मेदारी नहीं है? क्या हम इस पर खुद नहीं सोचेंगे? और ये प्रेशर जब क्रिएट होगा, जो आप कह रहे थे स्टार की ज़रूरत है, वो अपने आप कम हो जाएगी. अगर माँ बाप को ये लगने लगे, बच्चों को भी ये लगने लगे कि हमारे लिए पिक्चर है और एक माहौल ऐसा बन जाए. देखिए, सब सरकार नहीं कर सकती है. We very easily palm off our social responsibilities on government and say government should create this kind of platform. Society should create that adequate pressure for children's film to come out, and we should make sure that we support them. And media should play a role in making sure that you promote them. ऐसा नहीं कि बड़े बड़े बजट होंगे तभी प्रमोट होंगे. कितनी पावर है मीडिया की, कितनी पावर है लोगों की. आप फैसला कर लीजिए कि आप बच्चों की फिल्मों को बढ़ाएंगे, वो हमारे समाज के लिए हमारे होने की शर्त हैं, तो फिर अपने आप होगा. Sorry, I interrupted.
So, Jitu, I'll pull up one more minute. Just want to, because I remembered a very interesting incident on Dhanak. It was shot in Rajasthan, Jodhpur, and we applied for tax-free Rajasthan. We ran from pillar to post so that kids can watch it. We got the approval after 8 months the film came out of the theater. So that's where we feel that government has a role to play, that if the kid film shot in Rajasthan and to get a tax-free status from Rajasthan, it took 10 months. By that time, film was out in the theaters and people forget about it. So it's very important that we have a balanced approach on both sides.
Yeah, but why I spoke why I spoke about audience, actually, we have to be more responsible and responsive. Because when we made I Am Kalam and it traveled across the world, and when we wanted to release it in India, immediately in 7 days, there were more than 500,000 torrent download. So it was one of the most, acclaimed film. Everybody have watched it, but nobody has gone to the theater to watch it. That's the problem. So we have to, before we talk about others, we should talk about ourselves. So that's what I mean to say. At the same time, as a filmmaker also, we should produce more content for them. It's a supply and demand strategy. If there are more, I don't think 15 years back there was McDonald's was so popular in India, but now it's everywhere because the supply increased. So we have to supply more content for children. We have to make more films. We have that conviction in our films. I agree with you also, the star power and everything. But together we can create opportunities. We can create platforms, and that's how we have created our festival to, to open up, to create opportunities for children. At the same time, we encourage filmmakers also who are making films for children. So there are many sections, that, yeah.
So actually taking on from there, I'll just open it for the audience, but just 1 minute I'll take, because when we're talking about, audience, building an audience, I don't know how many of you are aware of the Golden Elephant, which the government of India used to conduct till 2017, I think was the last edition. And this has been happening in Hyderabad for 2 decades. 2 lakh children would come and attend the festival. And it's also very popular internationally. Hundreds of film professionals from across the world would come and attend it. And parents have come to the festival when they were kids, and now they bring their children. And there is an entire culture which is created in that city for children's films. So that's really important. And I don't know who we have here right now representing. I'm using this opportunity also to see if somebody here representing NFDC or the ministry, because CFSI no longer exists as CFSI, but it does, children's films are now, under NFDC. So I would really, really hope that festival is started. It's really missed by Hyderabad, and it's missed by film professionals across the world. We will now, because we have very short time now, we'll just open it to the audience. Okay, there are many hands, but we will, I'll take your question first. So we have the volunteer. Yeah, and then you. Yeah.
Sorry.
And just see who you're addressing the question to.
मैं सुरेश शर्मा हूँ, डॉक्यूमेंट्री फिल्म मेकर हूँ और फिल्में बनाई हैं। मैं आदरणीय जोशी से पूछना चाहता हूँ कि ये अभी चर्चा हुई बाल फिल्मों की, तो एनिमेशन फिल्में जो बन रही है बच्चों के लिए, उनके बारे में वो क्या सोचते हैं, क्या उसका स्तर है और उसमें क्या सुधार होना चाहिए?
देखिए एनिमेशन बहुत ही एनिमेशन में दोनों तरह का काम मुझे दिख रहा है, बहुत अच्छा और बहुत ही जल्दी में किया हुआ, दोनों काम दिख रहे हैं। कई बार सब्जेक्ट्स इतने अच्छे हैं लेकिन उनका प्रस्तुतिकरण जो है वो बहुत ही साधारण है, अच्छा होना चाहिए था। जैसे कि हमारे खासकर हमारी कहानियाँ जो हैं, भारतीय कहानियाँ, जो इंटरनेशनल एनिमेशन तो आपको बहुत अच्छा मिलता है, पर हमारे देश से जुड़ी हुई, हमारे कल्चर से निकली हुई बहुत सुंदर सुंदर कहानियाँ हैं, पर कई बार तो उनका सत्यानाश हो गया है। वो मतलब वो सब्जेक्ट लगता है कि बौना था, जबकि सब्जेक्ट बहुत ज़बरदस्त था, उसका प्रस्तुतिकरण अच्छा नहीं था। तो मुझे लगता है कि हमको एनिमेशन में, और ये जैसे कि अभी आपने भी कहा कि कितना काम है जो इंटरनेशनल जो एनिमेशन फिल्म है उनका हमारे यहाँ हो रहा है, इधर बॉम्बे में हो रहा है, पूना में हो रहा है, बैकरूम काम हो रहा है, पर हमारी जो खुद की एनिमेशन है वो गिनी चुनी ही फिल्में हैं जिनको आप स्तरीय कह सकते हैं। तो इसका उलझा हुआ आंसर ये है कि दोनों चीज़ें हो रही हैं और हमको स्तर अपनी कहानियों का जो एनिमेशन के हिसाब से प्रस्तुतिकरण है उसे ज़्यादा प्रभावी और टेक्निकली ज़्यादा सुपीरियर करने की आवश्यकता है।
Lovely session, and I think any panel like this has in it call to action, which is what you have invited all of us to do, and I take the first step. So I'd like to quickly share 2 years back, I released a film on human trafficking, 2 children central characters, but it had Sanjay Surya, Divya Datta, Vamani Rani, all these people. I didn't make enough money on the box office, it was a disaster, but I have recovered, I could pull out a lot of my investment. It was a reasonably sized budget film for a children's film, if it was, from schools, okay? And today I have access to 15 to 20 lakh screening tickets, possibly, and we are talking about 10 films which addresses children's need age between 12 and 20, because उनके जो concerns हैं, needs हैं, उनको लेकर के कोई film बन ही नहीं रही है. I Am Kalam, तारे ज़मीन पे, चिल्लर पार्टी, Stanley का डब्बा, quickly, yes, yeah,
whatever your question is.
Stanley का डब्बा और my own film झलकी, they are far and few in between. You know, 10 फिल्में बनती हैं 15 साल में. So I feel that at least 30 films needs to be made every year, out of which 10 I can take responsibility for. And there are ways to monetize it, and like Manish has said, there are plenty of ways to monetize it, not just box office. So we can talk online, offline, but there are, I may need everyone's support at some level or the other. It has to be a collective effort. It cannot be one person's thing. So, but the thing is, films needs to be made. It is not being made. That's the reality.
You know, your point is taken very well. Actually, in mostly children's films that are made, whether in Maharashtra or otherwise, the money does come out only through school screenings. And that's something that, you know, has not been fully consolidated and tapped yet. But local distributors in schools, they exist, and somebody just has to sort of, you know, bind them
So
together.
you have to remember that dumbing down does not happen. You know, see, children, आप बना रहे हैं, मतलब आप खुद जानते होंगे. But dumbing down of films to children and कि बच्चों के लिए बना रहे हैं तो एक तरह से बनाएंगे. बच्चे भी उनको लगने लगता है कि you are being condescending towards them. Absolutely. See, that condescension has to also diminish. You have to, and that's the reason child psychologists and people like them, so it's very important that we pitch them right.
Can we have the conversation later, Brahmanan? We'll just go to the next question. Yeah, children or not, another. Can we give the mic to this lady? I mean, she's been. Yeah, can I ask you later after this?
Sure, thank you.
Yeah? Yeah, you ask your question. So, of course, like you were saying, children are not another species. They have the same emotions, the same humor, so we can't treat them differently. Yes.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm a writer and director.
So 1 year back, I started teaching 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th children filmmaking. So it's a government initiative where children can take half-day academics and half-day any art subject, whatever they want. It can be drawing, it can be painting, it can be filmmaking too. But as soon as the IAS officer who initiated this changed, the program has stopped all of a sudden. So now they had so much passion towards films, they wanted to make films. It was an immense passion I have seen. But as they stopped it all of a sudden, that's a story which got me, and I've written a story about these children.
Do you have a question?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
can you please quickly ask the
Yes.
question? Yeah.
So I have written a story about these children, but when I'm approaching producers with this story, so everyone is asking one question. First of all, children's stories, it's hard to produce. It's hard to get a producer. And second thing is, what star cast you have. So how can we make children's film when the situation is so tough and when it's very hard for the producers to come in? So
If you have a good story,
Yes.
then definitely somebody is going to collaborate with you. There is some producer for you. You have to reach to the right person, right time. Yeah.
yes.
Challenges with everyone. ये सिर्फ चिल्ड्रन फिल्मों का चैलेंज नहीं है कि आपकी कहानी है, आपके पास कौन कौन है, पैसा कौन लगा रहा है, लोग कौन आ रहे हैं. This is not something which is faced by children film. It's faced by every filmmaker. So these are challenges of filmmaking. We are all fighting in our own ways, but be at it. You are on a good path. Don't give up.
Yes.
Lovely. No, we can just take 2 questions now. One is yours, and then yours will be last. Can I ask you to please be very brief?
Yeah.
Yes, and with a question and not a comment. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Ramesh Tekwani, and I have been long enough in the business. From advertising to ISRO, I used to make science programs for village school children. My question is very specific for Mr. Joshi, because I'm involved with festivals, including children's festivals, and some of them have been supported by UNICEF. At what is the kind of leeway that you have to, as a jury member of a film festival for children and various things, what is the leeway that we have in films? Because years ago, in the Golden Elephant Cinema, a film was released, and we asked the filmmaker to delete a particular sequence. Unfortunately, the DVD got spoiled, and we released the old one, and the journalists made hell of it. Now, coming back right now, should we show smoking? Like, if you have children's films coming in from abroad, teenagers get involved in lovemaking and sex. While in India, we have our own taboos. So how much are you allowed to, or do we still tell them कि
मैंने अभी आपको कविता सुनाई थी. मैंने आपको कविता सुनाई थी.
कि बच्चों को बच्चा रहने दो.
बैंगनी कंचे हथेली पर सजाने दो. अगर आपको वो सेक्स सीन बैंगनी कंचा लग रहा है तो जरूर रखिए आप. लेकिन बैंगनी कंचा नहीं लग रहा है तो मत रखिए.
मत रखिए
आप भी बच्चे रहे, आपके घर में भी बच्चे हैं. आप देखिए उन बच्चों की तरफ, आपको उत्तर मिल जाएगा. ये तो इसमें कोई बात ही नहीं है. ये सवाल आपको पूछना ही नहीं चाहिए एक्चुअली. आपका बच्चा आपके आंखों में उसकी देखिए, इसको मैं क्या दिखाना चाहता हूँ. यू रियली लव द चाइल्ड, यू विल शो व्हाट द चाइल्ड शुड सी. आप उसको क्या खिलाते हैं, देखते हैं ना चम्मच में, बेटा ये क्या खा रहे हो, ये मत खाओ, तुम्हारे लिए अच्छा नहीं है. तो इसमें कोई, दिस इज नॉट पुलिसिंग, दिस इज रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. पौधों को पानी देना पुलिसिंग नहीं है, पौधों को पानी देना कर्तव्य है.
नहीं, जो आपने अभी कहा, it was very, you specified something. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, it may be a stupid question, but
Thank you
very much.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Tekwani. Now we have, the last question. Please, yeah.
I'm Som Nagda. So I just wanted to ask, like Manish sir rightfully said, movies produced by productions such as Marvel and Tom and...
We can't hear you.
Oh,
If
sorry.
you can just-
So, like Manish sir rightfully said, movies produced by productions such as Marvel or movies like Tom and Jerry attract viewership from across all ages. So do you think Indian cinema should inspire similar films or create a space for such films that attracts viewers from all ages and not just children?
Sorry, can you repeat your question? You're saying films like Tom and Jerry and others were mentioned.
Yeah,
Is that
so
what
like
Yeah.
films produced by Marvel or
Marvel,
like
yes.
or like Tom and Jerry, they
Yeah.
attract viewers from all ages, like
That's
from
right.
my father, my grandfather, or me.
Yeah. So you're saying Indian films should
Should
also.
also take inspiration from that. How do you create a space for such a movie?
Okay. So in India, how do you? And I think and you also mentioned Lion King, so maybe that's a great question.
Actually,
for
the
you.
question has the answer itself. Yes, we should. Because there's a huge market, not only from the point of view of audience as kids, but also audience as the parents, kids' parents, and all the family. So if we create more films which has wholesome entertainment value for each and every member of the family, your audience grows. And kids alone can't go to the theater. So you have to bring in the family to the theater. So yes, the answer is yes and yes, that we need to make and develop films which has a wholesome entertainment value and has something for each one in a family. That's the only thing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry we can't really take any further questions. We're at the end of our. MG, how are we doing for time? Can we take a last question or?
I need to go.
One? Okay, fine. Yeah, you go.
Hi, I'm Padmavati. I am from Hyderabad. I'm a filmmaker from Hyderabad. And from last 10 years, I've done extremely mainstream cinema. And I've recently shot my children's film. And yeah, I made a film already. It's called Gandhi Tata Chettu. And wherever I go approaching for my film, everyone appreciates me for making children's film, which is not what I want. And I want children to actually see my film. And how do, I take it, because in Hyderabad, every year we used to have 1 week children's festival where we used to watch
That's the
movies for
golden
free.
elephant. Yeah.
Like you can walk into any theater, watch movies for free. So how can, as he told that it took 10 months for him to get permission to screen movies for kids in Rajasthan. So how do we take it to government and convince them that children need healthy food and not junk?
Are you talking about monetizing your film or?
No, not
generally?
monetizing. How do I reach out to kids? Because
yeah, I mean, Jitu can answer that, but there are many film festivals that you can apply to. There are many screenings
exactly,
you can do
everyone's
yourself.
asking me to send it
Yeah.
to festivals, but how can I actually take it to children? Because
Yeah, that's why we have developed a alternative method of film distribution. So we can talk later and explore opportunities. We might take your film to a larger audience across the country and if possible outside India also.
So, आप लोग तो जानते होंगे कोई ऐसी जैसे कि भाई ये फिल्म फेस्टिवल है तो यहाँ पे सब अडल्ट्स हैं. Is there any film festival where only children are allowed and वही देखें वही critique करें?
Yeah, there are. So ऐसा होता है that you have within a children's film festival. You obviously it's targeted at children. Mostly schools get the kids, but there are also weekends where parents can also get, or in the evening parents can also come. So it's all organized like that. That schools get the kids.
तो आपको ये इनसे मोनिका जी से एड्रेस ले लीजिए, पहुंच जाइए वहाँ.
नहीं, और दूसरी बात है like what Brahmanand also did and what Jitu's done, what we did with Dhanak also. In a sense, if you really have that conviction, approach schools. If they like your film, they will screen your film, and you can monetize that as well. So that's it. So can we, sorry, we'll just have to end this. I think it was a great session. We know now that children are not another species. We don't have to make films specifically looking down at them and also looking at them as some sort of, junior adults. They are not. They're growing just like adults do. We are also still growing. So we make films for children, we make films for adults, but except that children's films, like you said, that we should place the child with agency. When we have a film with a child protagonist, that child should not be passive, waiting for some sort of a solution by the adult. The child has to have agency. And thank you. Yeah. Yes.
NFDC and the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting for taking this, for encouraging this, for, making this happen. And that is the leadership we look for.
Yes. So we also looking for government support as well as changing parents' perceptions. So thank you so much. Thank you, panelists, for this lovely, lovely discussion. And thank you for the audience. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the lovely discussion.